Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. The Minnesota Twins are looking forward to another great season in 2023, led by the return of All-Stars Carlos Correa and Brian Buxton. With the return of numerous players who were injured in 2022 and some new acquisitions, another division crown and a return to the World Series are in their sights. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello, I'm Steve Francisco, the host of Access to Democracy. Welcome to our program today. We have a very special guest with us. Roger New is the Eagan Police Chief. Chief New, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Thanks for having me here today.
Our colleague Alan Miller previously has interviewed you on our show before, and I have the privilege of interviewing you for the first time today,
Yes.
So thank you for coming on. So I'm curious, where did you grow up and where did you go to school?
Steve, I grew up in St. Paul. Grew up in St. Paul, right in the Midway, and went to school at St. Paul Central High School. Many of my family members still live in the St. Paul area, and my mother still lives in my childhood home. Grew up in St. Paul, played sports, and went to school there in St. Paul. After high school, I went off to Concordia College, where I completed my bachelor's degree in social science. And shortly thereafter, I was hired here at the Eagan Police Department as a community service officer.
So what led you to a career in law enforcement? Was there someone in your family, or was there a mentor that you had that led you toward this career path?
Believe it or not, when I was in elementary in St. Paul, elementary school in St. Paul, they always used to have a program called Officer Friendly, the St. Paul Police Department did. And this was where a police officer would come and introduce themselves to students. And at a really young age, I took an interest in law enforcement from those experiences. And truly, it never went away. And as soon as I got done with high school, I started pursuing it, or had an interest in pursuing it. And I didn't understand, or wasn't real clear on what the proper coursework that was needed when I was going through college. But over time, I met some people that helped put me on track to get my foot in the door in law enforcement.
Really important to have mentors, isn't it? I think.
Oh yeah.
You know, all of us can look to people who've really been kind of a guiding hand for us and helped us to clarify what our own goals were.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think about my career, and early on as a young man, when I was finishing up high school and my early years in college, I think Chief Bill Finney was the inspiration. He was the model. He when he became chief of police in St. Paul, everybody wanted to be the next chief of police somewhere. And, he served as that beacon for many African-American officers to get their foot in the door.
Wasn't he was the first African-American chief of police in the city of St. Paul,
Yes, he was.
Wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
As you are the first in the city of Eagan.
Yes, I am. Yes. So, and a unique connection that Chief Finney and I have was we both went to the same high school. He's a St. Paul Central High School graduate, as am I. and our families both attended the same church in St. Paul. So lots of connections with Chief Finney. But, you know, that he was an inspiration early on, but I would say that over the years, you know, I've had a number of people that have been really impactful in my career. I'd be remiss if I didn't, you know, offer some credit to Chief Pat Gagan. He was the first chief that hired me, and then along the way, you know, Chief McDonald has been very impactful in my career and really, you know, helped guide me and develop me over the years. Chief Thurkelson has always offered words of wisdom, along with many others. You know, I had Chief Harrington, you know, who continues to,
Right.
you know, offer input and guidance. Just, you know, lots of people over time. And, you know, I reference a lot of chiefs, but there's people that, you know, are you know, the community members, you know, the different officers I work with. There's a lot of people that, you know, have helped shape me to get me to where I'm at in my career right now.
You've had access to a lot of people with just a wealth of experience. I would think that probably helps make your job a little bit easier.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, I've got this mantra of, you know, some of my peers say to me, how do so many people, or how do people gain access to you? And it's largely to do with, I very seldomly say no. I firmly believe that as a police chief, you are there to serve the community, work with your community members, and if a community member wants to sit down with you to have a cup of coffee, I will find time. It may take me a few weeks to get there, but I will find time in my calendar to sit down and meet with a community member, because everyone has something valuable to say or offer up.
Right.
And I always start from a place of listening and making myself available to the community members.
Right. Chief, we need to touch on a somber note, recent event. February 18th was a very tragic day in the South Metro of Minnesota. The city of Burnsville, two police officers, Paul Elmstrand and Matthew Ruge, as well as firefighter paramedic Andrew Finseth, were killed in the line of duty while responding to a call of a family in danger. The deaths of these three brave first responders really shook the Metro and really the state of Minnesota to the core.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the men and women of the Eagan Police Department too. I understand that the Eagan Police Department provided some assistance and support to our colleagues next door in Burnsville. Can you tell us more specifically what the Eagan PD did?
You know, Steve, thanks for asking the question and your acknowledgement of the impact that the incident had on public safety here in Dakota County and throughout the Metro and state of Minnesota. Chief Swartz and I are very, very good friends. We've come up through the ranks together, and when you talk about mentors or people that have provided guidance, I think we've leaned on one another throughout the course of our years, especially those in administration. February 18th for both of us was very, very challenging to say the least. And if I'm being real honest with you, we still are continuing to navigate this new norm for us here in policing, you know, following this incident. And I shouldn't just say policing public safety, because I know our partners in the fire industry have been impacted just as well. As a department, we, you know, in the early, following the incident and throughout the days that followed up until the memorial services and, you know, even the days following, I've been closely connected to Chief Swartz and, you know, helping offer insight, support, whatever their agency needs. I know the Eagan Police Department in particular, following the incident, we took over handing most of their investigative cases. So our investigators for the Eagan Police Department essentially took over the responsibility of handling all crimes that need to be investigated.
And we should say too that even before this tragedy, there are mutual assistance agreements in place with surrounding communities, correct?
Correct.
the police departments of the various cities help each other when they need to, and this was certainly an example of that. Definitely
an example, and some of that is spelled out in state statute as well, that there's, agreements that from a mutual aid standpoint, we can assist one another. We also took over tactical responsibilities for the city of Burnsville while they were trying to process everything that had happened. And Steve, I'll tell you, the support continues today. Even beyond, weeks after the memorial service, we continue to offer that support. And, people ask the question, why so long, or why do you need to do this? Well, I think sometimes you see us in uniforms and you think, police officers are just robots and you can just, go to the next call. But I always remind people, the people that are wearing the uniform we all are someone's husband or wife. Right. We're a son or daughter, and we're human beings as well. And we have a range of emotions. And right now, the emotions amongst those of us in public safety, they're a little bit raw. But one of the things we do realize is we have a responsibility to provide public safety in the community. And we're lacing up our boots and trying to make sure that we get that done here. And our hearts go out to the families of these first responders who were killed. And really a very stark reminder, the tragedy of February 18th, that every time first responders put on the uniform, they put themselves in harm's way for us. For us and our communities to keep us safe. So let's talk about a few basics about the Eagan Police Department. How big is the department? How many sworn officers do you have? How many part-time officers? Yep. Steve, before we talk about that, I want to go back to your comments about families. Yes. And, I just want to make this comment about families. I appreciate the acknowledgement that those of us that wear the uniform get following instances like this. But one of the people that we always need to keep in mind are the family members that are impacted by these incidences as well. On a day-to-day basis, there's this complacency that sets in because you get so used to your loved one leaving the home and then coming back home. And, the worst nightmare is someone else knocking at the door saying something happened. That's the nightmare that our spouses, our family members live with each and every day. Every day. And I can tell you that the family members are going through it. So, I would just ask viewers if they could just keep in mind the family members of those of us that serve in public safety, because while we're going out and doing the job, I think the family members are serving right alongside of us as we do this difficult work. Thank you for making that point. Yeah. So, with regards to staffing, we're authorized 96 staff members at the Eagan Police Department. We are essentially the biggest department in the city of Eagan. I think Director Pimento from Parks and Rec would argue with me about that, because when he brings on his summer staff, he exceeds my numbers, but nonetheless. But they're part-time. They're part-time. So, yeah, I won't argue with him about that, but needless to say, we are the largest department in the city of Eagan. And we're authorized for 78 sworn officers and 18 civilian staff members. So we may have people watching this program, young people perhaps, who are contemplating a possible career in law enforcement. Tell us, if you would, describe what is the process of training. Sure. Obviously you need to pursue a course of study before you even get an offer. But once you're hired, describe the training regimen that police go through to become an Eagan police officer. Well, you reference young people, Steve. And I will simply say we're recruiting in all lanes of traffic. So if you have an interest in getting on board, I have a lane of traffic for you to get on the Eagan Police Department as well. My goodness, that's 68, really. I'll have to explore that further. Yeah. You'll have to get the permission from your spouse to do so, yes. So we're always recruiting. We have a cadet program that recruits people right after they get done with high school. Entry-level position that provides those that are selected 20 hours of work per week, and then we help with some of their tuition. We have a program called Pathways to Policing. So say for an example, a school teacher decided, I no longer want to teach, but I want to be a cop. Well, if we hire that school teacher, we can put them in a program that up at Hennepin Technical College that takes about 20 weeks. And then at the completion of that 20 weeks of school, we swear them in as a police officer. And then they go through about another 20 weeks of training internally at the police department before they're allowed to go out and do the job by themselves. And then we have the traditional route. We require 2 years of schooling and
college.
Of college,
Yeah.
thank you, of college. And then you know, there's once we select those candidates again are put through the 20-week internal field training process at the Eagan Police Department before they can go out and do the job.
So there's some parts of that training I'm guessing would be legal training about what makes for a legal arrest, what makes for a legal search and seizure of property, things such as this. Protecting people's constitutional rights is a big part of policing.
Yes.
That you know, we're governed by the rule of law,
Yep.
and the police have to follow that law too.
Yeah, and a lot of that, you know, we touch on that in our training, but a lot of that, the expectation is that they're coming in with some of that, and then when they come to us, we're showing them the Eagan way of how to do it, and then during that 20 weeks of field training, we're monitoring to make sure that they're adhering and not violating someone's constitutional rights.
Watching their interactions with the public.
Exactly. So, and then if we see someone that's not following those guidelines, we direct them back to Minnesota State statute, what the rules are, so on and so forth. And there's a 4-phase process before they're let on. They have to successfully complete each phase of that. But again, throughout those 4 phases, we're monitoring, you know, their performance on how they're using force, how they're managing constitutional rights, so on and so forth.
And police are ultimately licensed by the state of Minnesota, right? You can't be a law enforcement officer without having a license.
Correct.
Similarly, you can't fly a commercial airplane without having a pilot's license.
Absolutely.
Do officers go through recurrent training? They're brought back every year or occasionally for additional training or proficiency checks?
At a minimum, officers need to complete 16 hours of training per year. So every 3 years they're required to complete 48 hours of continuing education to maintain their law enforcement licenses in areas such as autism awareness, you know, bias-based policing, diversity training, uses of force. There's a litany of things that they need to check the boxes for to make sure that they're getting the necessary training over the course of, you know, a 3-year period of time. And if they're not going to get relicensed by the state of Minnesota. It's just like, you know, a residence driver's license. If if every 4 years you have to go in and renew your license, well, we have to do additional training to maintain our license as police officers.
And I am supposing that becoming a police officer in Eagan is a very competitive process, that you get a lot of applicants.
Yeah, I wish it was.
Really?
Oh yeah, I wish it was very competitive. And I only say that, you know, I go back to 2012 and when we had 2 positions open. And at that time, you know, we got almost 400 applications for 2 positions. Today, you know, when we post a position for, you know, 3, 4, 5 positions, we're lucky if we get 20 applications.
Really?
Yes, and that's
Do you
the
think
norm.
some of this is related to the stigma, the fallout surrounding George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis, that policing became seen as a much more challenging occupation? Did that have an impact on that?
I would definitely say that there was an impact from you know, George Floyd. I would also say that when you look at the demographics of people out in the workforce working, all industries are impacted by us, by the shortage of people out there working. And I would circle simply back to, you know, public safety is something that we all need and everybody wants in their household, and we're always looking for good people to do that. But George Floyd and the police reform discussion that took place following that, I think really had an adverse effect on our numbers in law enforcement. But we're trying to think outside the box to bring people in. And as I mentioned before, when I talked about our cadet program, that program is doing something that's outside the norm. We're looking at high school kids right out of high school, bringing them on board. And several weeks ago, I hired two Eagan graduates from last year and brought them on as cadets. They're freshmen in college, and we will help mentor them along over the years with the long-term game of our long-term goal of bringing them on as police officers.
Chief, is the cadet program the same as the youth leadership program, or are these two different things?
Completely different.
Okay, well, tell us about the youth leadership program. You wanted to speak to that.
I did. The Youth Leadership Academy that we do is held every year in June up at our Eagan Community Center. And it's a 4-day event where we bring in a number of leaders from different industries to speak and work with a group of the kids that are selected for the program. The program is free of charge, but one of the main focuses that we try to do with this program is talk leadership. And oftentimes, because the police department's running it, people believe it's a law enforcement program. It's not. We're not looking for people that
it's a leadership
development program.
Right.
There are some semblance of law enforcement that are infused in the program, but we bring people from all walks of life and industry, part of it, that are interested in talking about leadership to youth in our community.
Very good. Chief, last year a number of school districts in Minnesota withdrew their school resource officers. Some places they call them the school liaisons. These are police officers assigned to provide security in schools.
Sure.
And there was a reason for that. Tell us briefly what the reason was. But also there was the Minnesota legislature recently passed, and Governor Tim Walz signed legislation clarifying the issues about use of force for SROs. Tell us what happened with that.
Yeah, I want to start with this. There was, with the whole SRO conversation, a lot of people were led to believe that it was law enforcement being upset about their ability to not use force. That is by and far that is so incorrect. That had nothing to do with it at all. It was part of the discussion, but we were not upset because we couldn't use force. It was unclear as to when and who could use force in what situations. And I explain it. What the public needs to understand, and I've tried to explain this to so many people. Just yesterday, I was here at Eagan High School talking to a group of students who asked me the question, what happened with the SRO program? And I equated it this way. And this is probably the simplest way to explain it to a group of students. If you had two assistant principals here at the school, and one said you could come in at 9 o'clock, and the other one said you had to be here at 8 o'clock, who's right?
That's the situation we were in with respect to this issue with SRO.
The legislation. It was in two parts of state statute, and there were lawmakers that believed that one portion of the state statute was our guidance, whereas our interpretation was it wasn't part of state law. So which one should we follow?
So now with the new legislation, they're on the same page? There was agreement or consensus, and that's what the governor signed into law?
That's what the governor signed into law. And truly, it took a lot of conversations to do so, and they've implemented some more guidance that hopefully will make things better. But nonetheless, we're much closer. We have more clarity today than we did back in the fall.
Very good. Our time's starting to wind down.
Yep.
We have about 5 minutes left. I want to ask you real quickly, if I could. It seems we hear a lot in the news these days about internet crime, crimes directed against seniors, scams, frauds. We've done a number of shows on Access to Democracy about that very issue, but also children being targeted, sexual exploitation. an issue, a new term that's come into use, sextortion, where people get intimate photographs on the internet.
Sure.
Does the Eagan Police Department have detectives or officers who are working on computer-based crimes affecting Eagan residents?
My short answer is yes. And it's interesting. I started in policing in 1994, and this thing called computers was nowhere in our mind. And today
You mean floppy disks and big monitors?
Exactly. And you know, fast forward, you know, about 10 years ago, I think the average home probably had anywhere from 8 to 11 devices that connected to a Wi-Fi. And if you take a moment and you start thinking about how many devices are in your household to connect to Wi-Fi, it's kind of astonishing, but that speaks to the advancement of technology. And those numbers will continue to grow, and it's important for us in law enforcement to leverage technology to do policing.
Real quickly, tell our viewers, I've heard about SafeCam. What is the SafeCam voluntary registration program?
Sure. You know, many people have exterior camera systems, and essentially what you can do is register your camera system with the Eagan Police Department, and you know, if there's a crime that occurs in your community, we'll send out an alert seeking information, and it's a way to connect and with our community members and make them aware that something's occurred, and asking them to check their cameras to see if they
Because
see
their home
something.
video camera or doorbell cam may have captured a crime in progress. You can use the video recovered from that as evidence to help prosecute somebody.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
In
Yes.
those types of situations.
Yes.
And again, it's voluntary, strictly voluntary program.
Yes.
So most of our viewers, I think, probably their main contact with the Eagan Police, hopefully, is National Night Out.
Yes.
Your officers, you're a big believer in the police being a strong presence in the community and being visible. Aside from National Night Out, are there other big events that the Eagan Police participate in the community?
You know, we have National Night Out. One of the, you know, as I sit here right now, I think about Eagan High School, and we do Cops versus Cats, where we play flag football with them, with the high school football team right before the season kicks off. And I get a good chuckle out of that because the high school kids, you know, taunt the police chief, and they fail to realize the chief is 50+ years old. And I'm not going to
You've played in these games?
I play every year. I play every year, and you know, the neatest part about the Cops versus the Cats is the stands are full when we have the event, and we take donations for the open door. It's a nice community event
That's
that we
great.
do, so it's pretty cool.
We've had Jason Vianna from the Open Door Food Pantry. He's been on our show several times. So raising money for a good cause and having a lot of fun and kind of building bonds between Eagan Police and people in the community.
It's
here.
building bonds within the community, and the police can't do what we do without our community support.
We're down to less than 2 minutes. I want to ask you real quickly, kind of a heavy subject to bring up, the opioid and fentanyl crisis that we're hearing about. Are we seeing evidence of this crime reaching into our community as well? It seems to be prevalent all over the country, not just in urban areas, but suburbs and even rural areas.
We are, and we did an opioid summit at City Hall this year where we wanted to create some awareness about this topic. It is an issue, and it's not going away, and I'm sure that we'll have more conversations going forward. But I want to make the community aware of the fact that we're working closely with public health to try to find programming so we can create more awareness and preventative methods. And don't be surprised if you hear us sponsoring some sort of initiative in the future regarding this with, you know, again, interacting with our youth in our community, but more to come with that. But we're working closely with public health to try to, you know, find things to combat this problem in our community.
Very good. We'll stay tuned. Chief Roger New, Chief of the Eagan Police Department, first of all, thank you for your service to our community. Thank you to the men and women of the Eagan Police Department who keep us safe and for the great work you do. And thank you for being our guest on Access to Democracy.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate being here.